Remember how after Godzilla 1954 came out, they decided to immediately rush out a sequel? Yeah, well that's exactly what they did again with this movie right after Mothra vs. Godzilla. But there is one major difference between this and Godzilla Raids Again. This movie is actually pretty damn good. And in addition to that, this movie had a major impact on a bunch of elements in the franchise going forward. Well, for starters, as you can tell, this movie does not have Godzilla in the title. This movie is called Ghidorah, the three-headed monster. That's because it was the first movie to introduce Godzilla's main opponent, King Ghidorah. We were also introduced to the flying monster Rodan for the first time, as well as a reappearance from the Mothra larva. Even more significant, though, is this is the first movie where Godzilla actually turned babyface and stopped portraying the villain role, which he had done in the previous 4 films. This movie also carried over another pretty good trend from Mothra vs. Godzilla, in the sense that the humans were once again well acted and not at all annoying, and they didn't invade on the plot too much. That being said, though, the plot was completely centered around a human, but it was actually interesting this time. The plot basically revolves around a princess whose body has been overtaken by a Venus alien. That alien has the ability to see the future and warns the humans of the incoming fight between King Ghidorah, Rodan Godzilla, and Mothra. The two main characters were a brother-sister duo, portrayed by Yosuke Natsuki and Yoriko Hoshi. You might recognize Hoshi as she played Junko in Mothra vs. Godzilla, but even though she's back in the very next movie, she's playing a completely different character. Hiroshi Koizumi is also back in this film once again, but he is still playing Professor Mirai from Mothra vs. Godzilla. So one of them changed roles completely, but the other is still in his same role. That's kinda weird, but whatever, it's what they were going for. And again, despite this film being rushed, which of course would lead you to believe that this movie was not going to be good, they somehow arguably made a movie on par with Mothra vs. Godzilla. But was it as good or maybe even better than Mothra vs. Godzilla? Well, we're gonna find out right now as we take a look back at Ghidorah, the three-headed monster. So the movie starts with reporter Naoko Shindu interviewing Japan's UFO Society. They aren't able to talk to any aliens, but a huge-ass meteor shower does start up. Meanwhile, Yayoko's brother, who was never given a first name, so we'll just call him Detective Shindu, is informed of a princess coming over from the island of Selgina. She's apparently the target of a possible assassination attempt, and Shindu is assigned as her bodyguard. Meanwhile, the princess herself is flying to Japan until she's engulfed by an eerie light. A voice then tells her to escape, and she jumps out of the plane. I mean, maybe she was okay, no, never mind, no, that's probably a good idea. The next day, Professor Mirai and some friends are sent to a mountain where a giant meteor crashed. This meteor looks almost like an egg, and it has strange magnetic abilities. Naoko, meanwhile, heads downtown to investigate a prophet who is preaching about the incoming end of the world. The prophet claims to be from the planet Venus and says a disaster is coming at Mount Also. And yeah, sure enough, that bitch is smoking like nothing else. Later that night, the Shido siblings, who I guess still live together along with their mother, decide to watch a television program. The television program features the Shiobin twins, who inform the viewers that one of the Mothra larvae has died, but the other is still alive. After the program's over, Shindo sees a picture of the prophet in the paper and realizes that it's the princess who he thought died in a plane crash. Someone else recognizes the princess as well, her uncle, who was the one who orchestrated the assassination plot on her. He decides to send his top assassin to Japan to finish her off. While both looking for the princess, the Shindu siblings meet up with Professor Mirai at a bar. While they're talking about the egg that Mirai found, they see on the television that the prophet is now preaching at Mount Also. She tells the people there that they all have to leave immediately as the monster Rodan is soon to rise. They don't believe her though, but maybe they should have, as Rodan is here to join the party. In other bad news, the assassin has arrived in Japan, while the glowing egg that Mirai is guarding seems on the verge of exploding. Meanwhile, the twins are about to go back home, but they're stopped by the prophet, who tells them it's unsafe to sail. Fun fact, the ship captain here is played by the same guy who played Kumiyama in Mothra vs. Godzilla. They order the prophet to leave, but Naoko arrives and takes the prophet with her instead. Detective Shindu and the police chief, meanwhile, are able to confirm that the princess and the prophet are the same person, as Shindu was able to find her bracelet. They interview a fisherman who testifies to them that he acquired the bracelet in exchange for his clothes. Naoko and the prophet, meanwhile, go to a hotel room, but uh-oh, look who else is here. Not just them, though. The twins snuck into the hotel room as well. So why the hell shouldn't they have gotten on that ship anyway? Oh, crap. Well, that makes sense. Naoko convinces the Prophet Princess to do an interview, but she leaves to go downstairs and meet her brother Shindo. As she does that, the assassins break into the room and attempt to murder the Prophet. Luckily, Shindo arrives just in time and is able to chase them away. And to add to our string of absolutely great news, Giant Lizard McGee is here to fuck your day up. He's not the only one here, though, as it's Rodan. The siblings decide to take the princess to a doctor in the countryside to see what's really wrong with her. The Prophet Princess keeps insisting she's from Venus, though, and warns of a giant monster named King Ghidorah, who destroyed her home of Venus over 5,000 years ago. Rodan! And also, about that King Ghidorah, it looks like that meteor's finally ready to hatch. That's because it's not a meteor, it's an egg, and it contains the three-headed monster himself, King Ghidorah. Not knowing what to do, a town hall meeting is called to discuss options. They end up asking the twins to summon Mothra to see if she can help, but Mothra cannot defeat Ghidorah alone. The only way to defeat Ghidorah would be for Mothra to convince Rodan and Godzilla to all work together. Hey yo bitches, it's me. I'm gonna fuck up your life. I'm gonna fuck up your radio tower. I'm gonna fuck up your good Christian bagel shop. I'm gonna paint your entire town in lightning. Lightning, 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 more lightning. And on that notion, the twins decide, okay, yeah, probably time to call Mothra now, and they start singing a song. Meanwhile, at Legion of Doom, the Doctor and Shindo have the Princess Prophet hypnotized, trying to get more info out of her, but uh-oh, the assassins have arrived. They're gonna do electroshock therapy to the princess, and the assassin's like, hey, we'll just kill her this way by turning the whole thing up to 3,000 volts, which will surely to God kill her. I can show you the world. Shining, shimmering, splendid. Tell me, Zilla, have you ever been dropped on some power lines? The assassins have just about had enough at this point, and they once again start a shootout with Shindo. Luckily, the professor arrives and conks one of them over the head with a hammer, and they run off. The good guys then file into a car to go see the carnage, as Mothra is on her way. Mothra finally slinks up to the battle and looks like she's interrupting one hell of a dance party. After Godzilla and Rodan finish playing Pong, Mothra decides to cum on both their faces to calm them down a little bit. The three monsters then begin to have a conversation, with the twins translating for the humans. Mothra tries to convince the two to cooperate, and they do find some common ground, but they find common ground on agreeing not to help the humans. Well, I mean, how the hell are we gonna stop King Ghidorah now? Hey yo, bitches, it's me again! I'm back and I'm gonna fuck up your mountain! He fucked up that mountain to the point where he caused an avalanche, which kills almost all the assassins, but the main one's still alive. Mothra finally decides, alright fine, you assholes don't want to help me, I'll just go fight this dude myself, which I'm sure will go incredibly well. Spoiler alert, it does not go very well. However, seeing Mothra get fucked up by this giant three-headed freak is enough to convince Godzilla and Rodan to join in on the party. Meanwhile, the princess has disappeared and she needs to go pray and stuff, but the assassin is here and shoots her right in the fucking head. Shindo arrives to protect her, and turns out that shot didn't kill her, but rather made her recover her memory. Shindo is shot multiple times by the assassin though, and he's about to finish them off, but luckily, he's killed by another conveniently timed avalanche. Back in the fight meanwhile, Rodan, Godzilla, and Mothra are really perfecting their teamwork skills. Mothra sprays her sticky spray all over Ghidorah before Godzilla picks him up and just straight yeets him. Ghidorah has had just about enough of this shit though, and he decides screw it and flies all the way back to outer space. The next day, the princess is unable to recall anything during her time as the Prophet, but is able to recall one thing, that Shindo saved her life 3 times, to which she thanks him for. The movie then ends with simultaneous goodbye scenes, the humans waving goodbye to the princess as her plane takes off, and Godzilla and Rodan looking on as Mothra and the twins sail back to Ender Island. So this is the 5th Godzilla film we've reviewed, and the 3rd one I consider to be pretty solid. But just how good was it? Well, let's pull up the ranking board and find out. So there's a couple things in this that are pretty obvious to me. This movie was very obviously better than King Kong vs. Godzilla or Godzilla Raids Again. I do not think this movie was better than Godzilla 1954. So now reigns the question, was this movie better than Mothra vs. Godzilla? Now this is an incredibly hard decision. Out of all the rankings I've done so far, the only decision I could think of that was maybe as hard as this was whether the Avengers was better than Iron Man. Like honestly, these two are close enough that I would give it a tie if I could, but I can't, I have to pick one better. So was Ghidorah the three-headed monster better than Mothra vs. Godzilla? Well, barely. By percentage points. By the thinnest of thin margins, yeah. Actually, believe it or not, I do think it was very close, but I think this movie overall had a more interesting plot, it had even more monsters, and while it was close, I do think by a thin hair that this is the second best Godzilla movie we have seen so far. So, here are the new rankings on the big board. Godzilla 1954, number 1. Ghidorah, the three-headed monster, number 2. Mothra vs. Godzilla, number 3. Godzilla Raids Again, number 4. And King Kong vs. Godzilla, number 5. One of the reasons I decided to rank this number 2 is this movie just completely blew out of the water what I thought was the main problem with Godzilla Raids Again and King Kong vs. Godzilla, and that was the boring-ass human plot. In those two movies, the humans were just annoying and uninteresting, and you just wanted their parts to be over so we could get to the monster fighting. Now don't get me wrong, I wanted monster fighting in this one too, but the human plot getting there in this movie kept you in it. It was unique. It was like nothing they had ever done before. A girl from freaking Venus is coming, like that they had never done anything even relatively close to that. Again, most of them were familiar actors from either the previous movies or, just good actors in general, and they all played their roles incredibly well. None of them were annoying. None of them tried to do some annoying comedy shit or anything like that, which was the another big problem in Godzilla Raids Again and King Kong vs. Godzilla was the annoying comedy shit, and they all played their roles incredibly well, and the plot was just good, and it was interesting, and it was arguably the best human plot overall, maybe even better than Godzilla 1954, at least on par with that. And like I said at the beginning, this movie was very, very significant. A lot shifted after this movie. Ghidorah is now in the franchise and he will be featured heavily going forward. Rodan will have roles, and of course Godzilla is now a good guy character. And remember how at the end of this movie, Ghidorah went to space? Well, in the next movie, we ourselves are going to go to space and see what's up with Ghidorah, as the next Godzilla film is titled Invasion of the Astro Monster. But was Invasion of the Astro Monster rushed as well? Well, I guess we'll find out. It possibly could have been. This movie came out about 8 months after Mothra vs. Godzilla, while Invasion of the Astro Monster came out a little less than a year after Ghidorah the Three-Headed Monster. But despite all the odds, this movie was actually damn good and, in my opinion, better than Mothra vs. Godzilla, even though they rushed it. But that is for another time. In conclusion, this was a surprisingly great Godzilla movie. It didn't really have the right to be this good, considering again it was rushed, but they overcame the odds and delivered what in my opinion is so far the second best film in the franchise. And we will be coming back to Godzilla eventually, but next week we are going to go in a whole different direction as we start our look backs at the Dark Knight trilogy with Batman Begins. But ladies and gentlemen, that is going to do it for me today. I hope you enjoyed my look back at Ghidorah, the three-headed monster. If you want to follow any of my social media links, they are all in the description down below. So also in the description is my Patreons. They are all named, all 40 of them. Thank you guys for your constant support of me and both my channels. With all that being said though, my name is Taff316. This has been my look back at Ghidorah, the three-headed monster, and I'll see you guys next time.